Everything? Welcome back to the Flying Knee Podcast. I don't know what this podcast is about. You might call it a sports podcast, but I'm just trying to figure it out, work on my craft and shit, I guess. But I'm just trying to figure out what my brand is. And right now, it's about nothing. It's kind of like Seinfeld. It's the podcast about nothing. Anyways, today we got lots to talk about. Football, MMA, tons of shit went down. We'll get into all that in a second. But if you're watching this on YouTube, drop a comment, like it, subscribe to my podcast. It means a lot to me. If you want to fucking talk shit, I don't even care. You can literally say whatever you want in the comments. If you're on SoundCloud, do the same. Subscribe. Look for the weekly podcasts Mondays, and I'm trying to get Fridays, but I've lied to you 3 weeks in a row. So, Mondays for sure, every single week. And if you're on iTunes, give it a subscribe. Put the notifications on, make it download every time. Drop me a rating, give me 5 stars. Anyways, thank you for listening, and now we'll get right into the podcast. What's up, you sleazy motherfuckers? Welcome to the podcast. Today it is a absolutely loaded topic. As you probably know, if you don't live under a rock, the Khabib beat Conor at UFC 229 to withhold his belt. And well, it's not like it's surprising, but for some reason I just didn't. When I watched the Iaquinta fight with Khabib, I sort of saw weakness in him. I think that's kind of why everybody was giving Conor a chance. But Khabib sort of just showed everybody why there's so much hype behind him, as in it was an absolute fucking ground fuck. Yeah. Literally, Khabib shot for the first takedown, and it was one of the most impressive takedowns I've ever seen, as in the speed at which he closed the distance. Yeah, and hit that low single on Conor's right ankle, and I thought there's no way Conor could get out of that. I thought there's no way Conor was gonna get pulled down to the ground, because he literally all he had was his left leg, and somehow Khabib hung on and literally just held him down for the entire fight. But I'm gonna get to the breakdowns of that fight. I'm gonna go in reverse order, starting with I'm gonna break down the whole main card here, but I'm gonna start with Sergio Pettis, because I bet on Sergio Pettis and I lost because of that. So basically, my bet was I picked Sergio in a parlay. It was Sergio. I took Derek Lewis. I took OSP. I took Tony Ferguson, and I took Conor. So the first bet of my first fight that was on my bets lost, and it was Sergio Pettis. And the way this fight went was, neither guys would take a risk on the whole fight. All I wanted the whole fight was I needed Sergio to just let his hands go, because he's a way better striker than Jussier Formiga. But the entire time, it felt like Formiga was basically just keeping his distance and not getting anything going in any of the rounds. First round, it was literally nothing happened. It was jab, here or there, maybe a strike would land from either one of them, but nothing amazing happened. And then the last minute, Jussier Formiga shoots a takedown and then sits on him for the entire round, and literally nothing happened. It was such an uneventful round, every single round, that the takedown was all he needed to win the round. So it was Sergio wouldn't take any risks or something for some reason. All I was thinking the entire fight was man, I really just need Sergio to let his hands go here, and I think he can win, because literally, it was so close up until the takedowns happened that it was anything could win. Sergio lands one good right hand, or one good strike, and it's the round's his. But every single round, it felt like Formiga was just sitting back, letting Sergio do his thing. He was just basically playing defense for every single round, and then Formiga would shoot the takedown and lay on him for the rest of the round. And every single round was completed with Formiga either on top of him or basically on top of him. And the third round I'll get to in a second, because that round was one of the most brutal rounds I've seen in UFC in a while. And the second round played exactly the same. No one did anything amazing. Literally barely any strikes were landed at all. And then Formiga shoots takedown, lays on him for the whole round, lays on him for a minute straight. Nothing, doesn't do anything on the ground. He'd try and pass. Sergio Pettis would keep him he kept him in a body triangle just so that Formiga couldn't pass. Not only was it Like, it was boring when they were standing. It was also boring on the ground because nobody would take a risk to do anything amazing on the ground. Like, Sergio kept him in a body triangle, and that doesn't do anything. Like, unless you're going to get a guillotine, there's nothing you can do with a guy on top of you in your body triangle. So all he was doing was making sure he couldn't pass, and he had no chance of getting up because he had his legs wrapped around him. And the third round starts just as I've been saying. No one's letting anything go, and I was obviously Sergio has to. Like, I just don't understand what the mindset was going into this fight or going into this third round. Like, Sergio is obviously down. Like, you have to let it go. Like, you have to let your hands go. Like, if you have any chance of winning the round, you have to let your hands go. And it's just disappointing because it's like Sergio is a super high level kickboxer, and he's super good at striking, way more high level than Formiga. But Formiga, obviously, he's got some ground game. But it seems like the entire game plan of Formiga was just to weather the storm and then take him down and then hold him down for the rest of the fight. Like, he literally won on points just because all he did was not take any damage and get one takedown every round. And in the third round, though, what he did was Anthony Pettis scrambled and Formiga got his back, and then Sergio Pettis he scrambled, Formiga got his back standing, and then Formiga tried to go for a rear naked on his back with a body triangle while Sergio's standing up. And Sergio literally kept him on his back for 3 minutes straight up against the fence. Like, all he literally had to do was walk him to the middle and try and throw him off, or maybe do like a roll forward, flip him off your back. But literally entire last 2.5-3 minutes of the third round was Formiga against the fence on Pettis' back. And I was just getting, it was it was the only boring fight in the whole card, and it was the last fight that I was going to expect to be boring. Like, Sergio Pettis, he's no Showtime. He's not as fun to watch as his brother, and we'll get to how fun his brother's fight was. But I was not expecting it to be that slow. The fight was just slow. Nothing happened other than Formiga would sit on top of him, and he ended up just getting the unanimous decision because literally nothing happened but 3 takedowns or 2 takedowns in the whole fight, and Formiga takes the win because of that. So I ended up losing my bet on the first fight of the parlay because literally just shit all didn't happen in that entire fight. So next we have Michelle Waterson and Felice Herrig. Now, I actually missed this fight because what I was watching it on was it was breaking up. My stream wasn't working. And Michelle Waterson took this one by unanimous decision. I heard that she had some good strikes. I saw a highlight of a nice kick she landed. But yeah, it's honestly what I expected. Michelle Waterson, she's a great fighter. I think that she is one of the better contenders in the division, and yeah, she's good. Yeah. So next one, and don't even get me started on this one. This one was probably my second favorite fight of the entire night. We have Derek Lewis, Alexander Volkov. And basically what happened for the first 2.5 rounds was exactly what I was expecting. Before I placed my bets, I was thinking, so coming into the weigh-ins, I was expecting Volkov to dominate the whole fight just because Volkov, his stamina, his conditioning is so much better than Derek Lewis's, which is true, and we saw that in this fight. And Volkov's range, I felt like he was going to be able to keep Derek Lewis at range the whole time. Derek Lewis is obviously a lot shorter. Volkov's 6'7". And I thought that Volkov would be able to keep Derek Lewis at range without being touched much because that's all Derek Lewis has really at his disposal is he has to get up in close, and he only needs one. He only needs one punch to win the fight. Yeah, that's all it took. But basically the whole fight it was Volkov would piece him up. He was using front kicks. He was just keeping him at bay. Landing punches. He was winning the fight by with flying colors going into the third round, right? And Derek Lewis was gassed. He was gassed. You could tell on his face, he was losing, and I didn't see any possibility for him to come back. But you cannot forget that if Derek Lewis lands a clean punch with the overhand right on you, you are going to sleep. You're going to sleep. That's all there is to say about it. And this is exactly what happened. So 20 seconds left in the third round. We have Alexander Volkov. He is getting a little bit too close. Basically just getting a little comfortable, even though Volkov literally could have ran away the entire end of the third round and he would have won the fight. He gets a little too close. He's getting a little bit too comfortable, and Derek Lewis feints a jab and then comes over with an overhand right and hits him in the chin, puts Volkov on his back, and he grounds and pounds and puts Volkov away. I have never been more hyped to see a fight end like that since John Jones beat DC.
Yeah, that was crazy.
I stood up off the couch and I was literally screaming at the top of my lungs. I could not believe what I just saw, and like Derek Lewis. Let's talk about his fucking his post-fight, his post-fight interview with Joe Rogan. So Derek Lewis takes his shorts off for some reason, and then Joe Rogan comes up to me and goes, he's like, "What's up, brother? He's like, why you got your shorts off?" He's like, "My balls was hot." And it's literally like, oh, then this thing that happened with him, his Instagram followers more than doubled since then. He had like 430,000. Now he has 1 million followers since his post-fight interview. Did you see that?
I did not.
That's ridiculous. Like, just because he had one, like,
such a following on the social media.
Yeah, his Instagram's hilarious. First of all, he posts just hilarious fucking videos. But like, he gained literally 500,000 followers on Instagram from his post-fight interview. Like, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, people actually want to see him on the podcast too.
Yeah, like he told Joe Rogan he's like, "I'll come on and smoke weed with you," and like obviously Joe Rogan will have him on. I just found that fucking hilarious because he's like, "My balls was hot." It's just such a classic Derek Lewis thing to say. Like when he was like, I forget who he beat, but on one of his post fight things, he's like, "Yo, where's Ronda Rousey's fine ass at?" It's just like every time his post interviews are fucking hilarious.
That's
like
hilarious. I did not know that.
And yeah, shout out to fucking Derek Lewis. Like, that guy's just fucking hilarious.
One of the greatest endings I've seen.
One of the best personalities in the sport, in my opinion. Next, we have Dominic Reyes defeats Ovince St. Preux via, I think it was a decision. And the reason why I say that is because Dominic Reyes put him on his back in the last 5 seconds of the third round.
Yeah.
Like, he just hit him with a straight right, and OSP was knocked out. Like, he was knocked out in the last 5 seconds of the fight, but I think they called it a decision because OSP ended up standing up.
Yes, he did, yeah. The ref told him he had to.
And basically, like, this fight, it ended, like, there was, like, two ways I considered this fight happening, this fight, like, going down. It was either OSP was gonna be the not like the aggressor, but I thought he was going to be like the experienced guy, maybe take him to the ground, put some groundwork, because obviously like OSP has a lot more experience on the ground than Dominic Reyes. I feel like if it would hit the ground, it would have been a completely different ending. But Dominic Reyes had like I think an 88% takedown percentage in the UFC so far, which is extremely impressive. Like that's in the upper tier of like the rankings.
Yeah, he's 10
but
right?
Yeah, he's 10-0. Dominic Reyes, I honestly have to apologize. I got to give him props because I didn't know exactly how good he'd be. Like, I thought he was just like a striker. He puts guys away. He gets lucky. He might catch someone, but he just beat OSP. Like, that's a big name. That puts him in the rankings for sure. Like, OSP he's got fights against some big guys. Like, he actually fought John Jones, and albeit John Jones didn't look great in that fight, but he didn't get finished, I don't think. And yeah, so OSP, he's like an experienced guy, and Dominic Reyes made it look like OSP hadn't really fought at that level before. And Dominic Reyes stuffed every takedown attempt. Dominic Reyes literally just he made the fight the way he wanted the fight to go, and I was actually impressed. I think that I'm excited to see what Dominic Reyes can do for the rest of his career because he's a young up and comer, and I think that he could actually do some big things in this division. Next fight was the best fight of the night and probably top 3 fights all year. Yeah. It was Tony Ferguson and Anthony Pettis. Unfortunate how the fight ended because it would have been, if it would have went 3 rounds of how that fight was going for the first 2, it would have been a classic. Like, I'm talking like up there with Rory McDonald and Robbie Lawler, like an absolute classic.
The Cub Swanson Doo Ho Choi.
Yeah, Doo Ho Choi, Cub Swanson, like it's up there in like best fights of all time. Yeah. If it goes 3 rounds and it's constantly how it was going for the first 2. So basically how it was going for the first 2 rounds is I feel like Anthony Pettis was maybe winning the fight. If not, it was close. Like it might have been tied after the first 2 rounds. Like Anthony Pettis actually knocked him down with the right hand and put Tony Ferguson down. But Tony Ferguson, that's like one guy if you want to win the fight against Tony Ferguson, you have to knock him out. Like Tony Ferguson's conditioning is unmatched in his division for sure. Like, no one has conditioning like Tony Ferguson. Tony Ferguson's resiliency, like his durability, is unmatched as well, and his ability to like put like actual physical damage on fighters was shown here, because this guy has the sharpest elbows in the sport probably. Like, when he puts elbows on you, you're getting cut. Like, there's no way, like no other way of going about it. Like, if he puts an elbow on your face, you're probably going to get cut probably 90% of the time, and that's exactly what happened. He put an elbow on, I think it was in Anthony Pettis' hairline. It was in his hairline.
Actually rocked him though.
Yeah, he rocked him in the second round with a punch, and then in that flurry, at some point, Tony Ferguson landed an elbow on him.
Yeah.
And right on his hairline, and Anthony Pettis was cut open.
Yeah.
Like, he was gushing.
Right at the top of his forehead.
Yeah, and I thought like it was all over like Tony Ferguson's mouth and shit. Like, this was literally
that was nasty.
This was pure warrior shit. Like, he landed the elbow on him, and Anthony Pettis was on top of him, and his blood was just dripping into Tony's mouth. And I was like, oh my god, I think Tony's cut open on his mouth or something.
Yeah, I thought it was Tony.
And then you can see it dripping down off Anthony Pettis' face, and I was like, when the fuck did that even happen? Like, he just like got it in there, and nobody really saw it.
Yeah, like he got on top before he started bleeding.
Yeah, and like I was just like, it's crazy to think how Tony Ferguson was rocked, and somehow he won the fight while being rocked.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure it was the punch that rocked Tony that Anthony Pettis broke his hand.
Was it? Yeah.
I think so. He said on the overhand right he broke his hand, which is, it's shitty because I was at the fight where he broke his hand the first time, and the worst thing about hand injuries is that it's like one of the most recurring injuries like of all time, especially if you're a fighter. Like Mayweather has like crazy broken hands. He has to like double wrap his hands before fights and shit. Yeah. And Anthony Pettis, like especially with wearing 4-ounce gloves, like you have almost no protection for your hands.
Yeah.
Like, other than hand wraps, that's basically your only protection. There's no shock absorption at all. So like, you basically like he's gonna break his hand almost any fight. It's just unfortunate because that fight was a literal war, and it ended up getting stopped between the second and third round from a corner stoppage. I think it wasn't because of the cuts. I think it was because he told his corner he broke his hand, so they pulled him off. It makes sense. Like, I was a little pissed off because it was just one of the most enjoyable fights I've seen in a long time. But it's just unfortunate that it ended the way it did, because it was a classic for like one for the ages, literally. And I gotta shout out to Anthony Pettis for putting on such a show at his age. At his age, like at this stage in his career, like I would actually enjoy seeing like a part 2 of that fight. To be honest, I don't think it's gonna happen just because Tony's looking at bigger and better things right now, but I would be interested in seeing that fight again if Anthony Pettis can win a couple beforehand. But let's talk about like what's next for Tony Ferguson. So the problem with what's next for Tony Ferguson is that I think that since Khabib won, it makes more sense that Tony Ferguson will get a title shot. But if Conor would have won, there was no chance. There's no chance Tony was getting a fight for the title if Conor would have won the championship.
Why is that?
Because it doesn't do anything for Conor. Like, Tony had a huge chip on his shoulder at the media day, but it literally like doesn't do anything for Conor. Like, as far as money, it doesn't do anything for his legacy. Like, what Conor is looking for right now at this stage in his career, he's looking for nothing but legacy fights. Yeah. Like, he would be doing Tony a favor by giving him that fight, because Tony gets a huge payday. He gets all the exposure in the world. Like, if you fight Conor, you're basically set.
He's doing everyone a favor like that, though.
The thing is, he's doing people a favor, but he right now, like with the Khabib fight, he had to, if he wanted to fight, that was the fight for him.
Yeah.
So like, he didn't really have a choice. It's not like he was doing Khabib a favor. Khabib has a championship, but if he has the belt, then he has no reason to fight Tony Ferguson, because Tony Ferguson's a seriously tough matchup because of that's one of the worst matchups stylistically, like for Conor, because Tony Ferguson has like insane cardio and insane durability, and Conor's cardio it's obviously like it's in question every single fight. unless he knocks the guy out in the first or second round, you can see him fading like with his endurance, because like he's just so explosive and he's such like a fast twitch fighter that like he doesn't have any
that's what he trains for,
he fights to explode and to put guys out. He doesn't fight to wear guys down. And that's why Nate Diaz beat him, that's why Khabib beat him, and like Tony Ferguson will be a terrible matchup for him because of the fact that he literally like there's no breaking him unless you knock him out. Like he is just that guy, similar to like a Robbie Lawler, to where like he's gonna keep coming at you until he's out. Like he has to be put down, or he's gonna keep coming at you. So Tony Ferguson, I think since Khabib won, there is a chance that he gets a title shot, but it's all dependent on what happens with Khabib's career after this, because Khabib's going to get punished, which I'll talk about in a second, which I think is something to keep an eye on, because, you know, there's been worse stuff that's happened than what Khabib did, but Khabib's going to get a suspension. If not, he's going to get a fine, if not a suspension. And Dana White said it depends on how long Khabib is going to be out for, whether or not he'll strip the title. But if Khabib doesn't get suspended for too long, like say he gets like less than 6 months, I don't think they strip the title from him. But if he keeps the title, I'm not sure Tony gets a fight with him. I'm not sure that Tony will get a fight with Khabib if Khabib keeps the title, because Khabib, again, he's talking about how he wants to be like Mayweather. He wants to be undefeated. He wants to be that guy who left out on top. And he's probably gonna do what Conor's doing. He's gonna take legacy fights. And like if he keeps the title, don't be surprised if you see a rematch between Conor and him, because Conor gets what he wants. Like if Conor tells Dana like the next fight for him is a title fight with Khabib, do not be surprised if that happens again. Especially the fact that what happened at the end of the fight, which I'll get to in a second. But if Khabib gets his title stripped, I think 100% Tony gets a title shot. Like 1,000,000% Tony gets a title shot. I don't know who it's going to be with. It could be with the winner of Nate Diaz, Dustin Poirier. It could be with Conor McGregor. But
Conor already said that he's looking forward to the rematch.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like if it could happen, like do not be surprised. But if Khabib gets stripped, I think 99.9% Tony gets a title shot for the vacant belt. And I don't know if Khabib comes back. But Tony will get a title shot for sure. Anyways, next we're gonna get to the main event, which, like, if you follow me on Twitter, you saw me tweeting while Khabib was beating the brakes off Conor like the whole time. And my brain exploded when Khabib hit the overhand right on Conor and knocked him down. Like that's literally the last thing I ever saw happening. It was literally like I was watching a different sport. Like I saw Khabib lands and Conor was on his heels, and I literally like my basement was so loud. Like I'm sitting in my basement, there's like fucking 13 guys down there. It was probably the loudest that's ever been in the neighborhood. Probably got noise complaints or something. Like Khabib dropped Conor McGregor, who is arguably the best striker in the UFC, and Khabib is considered to be one of the worst strikers at this level of the UFC, and Khabib dropped him. So I don't know why that happened. I don't know how Conor let that happen, because it seemed like Conor was seriously gassed. Like the first round, I thought that Conor was like kind of piecing him up a little bit in the first round until Khabib got shot for the takedown. As soon as Khabib shot the takedown, it was Khabib's round. Like it just didn't look like it was gonna, like the fight was gonna go Conor's way if that was gonna keep reoccurring. Like it just seemed so easy for Khabib to get the takedown. Like I did not think it would be that easy. Like I bet on Conor because I was thinking like Conor, movement fighter. He's got great movement. He's got good striking. He's got good counter striking. So I thought that Khabib would get caught coming in. Yeah. But Khabib shot so low for that first takedown that there's literally nothing Conor could have done. Like he couldn't knee him. Like he was so low that like both of his hands were on the ground, and like you can't knee him or kick him. And what are you gonna do? Punch him in the back of the head? Like he shot so low for that low single that like there's literally nothing Conor could have done, and he held on. Like. That's like one of the things that I forgot. It's like if Khabib gets a hold of you, there's no way you're getting away from him. And it was like going into it, I should have given Khabib more respect. To even think that Conor had a chance winning that, I feel bad to even say that Conor had a chance, because Khabib literally, Like, if you don't think Khabib is the best 155er of all time now, like, I don't even know what you're thinking. Because Khabib had just beat the brakes off Conor. Beat the fucking brakes off him. And, like he made Conor... It was like when you see Conor is getting submitted by Nate Diaz, and you see, like, that level of human... That in Conor, because Conor was just beating the shit out of everybody. Like, he beat Max Holloway, he's beat Chad Mendes, he's beat Nate Diaz, Eddie Alvarez. Like, he made Eddie Alvarez look like he didn't even belong, and it was Jose Aldo too. Like, he made those guys look like they didn't belong. And I don't know. Clearly, it seemed like the psychological warfare was working to an extent, but it seems also like it didn't matter. Like, Khabib's just so good that.
I feel like it made it worse for Conor, honestly.
It might have made it worse.
Yeah.
But literally, Khabib made it look like Conor did not belong. It looked like when you see Conor, it's like when Conor was getting submitted by Nate Diaz, you see like that look in his face where you're like, oh shit, like he knows what's like it's over. Yeah. It looked like that for the whole fight with Khabib. Like, Khabib would get him to the ground, and it just looked like Conor was like, you could see it in his face, like he thought he was fucked too. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It was like he was holding him down and ground and pounding. Who, by the way, like, Khabib has the most vicious ground and pound of all time. Like, best ground and pound I've ever seen. Like, it literally looks like every punch is knockout power every time he hits him. And Conor did not look like he belonged in the octagon that night with Khabib, which is unfortunate because Conor brings a lot to the sport. And I think that on my Twitter, I was sitting there, I was apologizing to Khabib for ever even thinking Conor could win that fight, because Khabib, literally, he is a different animal. And so now I'm gonna get to what happens after the fight. So Khabib, he wins. He gets a neck crank. So not a rear naked choke because he didn't slip it under the chin. He gets a neck crank on Conor, and he's talking shit to him while he's submitting him. He's like, we'll talk now, and he submits him. Conor taps, he stands up, he's screaming in Conor's face, just absolutely demoralizing Conor.
Yeah,
just want to
push him away from him.
Yeah, the ref actually he had to push him away, get to your corner, Khabib. And Khabib then, after he gets pushed away, he throws his mouth guard at the cage where Dylan Dennis and Conor's corner is standing. And I think it's because Dylan Dennis or somebody was saying something to Khabib. So I don't know exactly what led to. I don't know what Dylan Dennis was saying to Khabib to start this whole feud or whatever. But he must have been saying something after the fight that was so offensive. Like, I don't know what it was that he was saying, but he must have said something that was offensive, like about his family or something after the fight. And then Khabib just went flying eagle over the cage, went fucking straight parkour. Yeah. Like I've never seen someone scale the fence that fast. His feet didn't even touch the fence. Yeah. It was literally just up and over.
The guys behind him that were trying to catch him.
Yeah, they were trying to grab onto his legs and shit, and he was up and over in 3 seconds. It was there was no way you're catching him. And I saw this video on Instagram. I forget who made it. I would shout them out, but it was one of those cartoons. You ever see the cartoon of when Rose Namajunas beat Joanna, and they're cartoons of DC, and he's like, Thug Rose. Mm-hmm, yeah. There was one like that of Khabib, and it's just Khabib beats Conor, and you can see him he grows wings and flies over it, and it's he goes and he perches on top of Dylan Dennis and flies him away.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I saw that.
That one's fucking. I was fucking dying. But Khabib jumps over, and basically a riot ensues. And I honestly don't think that this whole altercation would have been that bad if Khabib's team didn't get involved. So, if you guys remember, Conor, after he beat Chad Mendes, scales the cage and jumps and goes up to Jose Aldo and points at him, right? And he's talking shit and whatever. Now, regardless of what his intentions were, he wasn't going to hit Jose Aldo or whatever. But if Khabib is the only one that reacts at the end of that fight, this doesn't become anything.
Yeah.
Khabib jumps the cage and goes at Dylan Dennis, and
he would still get fined, or
he probably wouldn't even get fined because he didn't even nothing came of it. As soon as he jumped in the crowd, he was pulled away. He didn't even get a punch. No one
making the UFC look bad at that point.
And
himself.
The thing is it's not like he makes the UFC look bad. It's the fact that it escalated that makes the UFC look bad. Because this isn't the first time that someone's left the cage after a fight. You know what I'm saying?
No, who else did?
Well, Conor McGregor has done it. Yoel Romero does it every fight. Like, he leaves the cage almost every fight. But the thing is like, it just, the fact that it escalated to, like, Khabib's team jumping in the cage and attacking Conor punching Khabib's brother or whatever on the top of the cage.
Yeah.
That's really what made the problem happen. Like, Khabib leaving the cage isn't the biggest problem here. It's the fact that it became a group thing. So, like, if you see Khabib jump over the cage, nothing came of that whole altercation. Like, he was immediately separated from Dillon Danis. No one got hurt, right? But it's the fact that someone jumped into the cage and attacked Conor, like, immediately as it happened, and it became like a riot because there was more moving pieces than just Khabib and Dillon Danis. So if it stays at just Khabib and Dillon Danis, then that's it. Then that it would end there and nothing happens. But since fucking Khabib's idiot teammates jump in the cage and made it something that was bigger than it needed to be, it became like this whole riot, and that's why it became so shitty. Because, like, it's happened before where fighters leave the cage and they're separated from whoever they're going after. But, like, the thing is I feel like people are coming at Khabib just because Conor lost. Like, just because it's Conor who lost. Like, if Conor has done everything that Khabib just did. Like, he assaulted the bus thing. He dissed his religion. He dissed his father. He called his father a coward. He's saying all this shit about his religion, calling him a terrorist, calling his manager a terrorist. Like, if you think that this reaction from Khabib is unprovoked, then you're being ignorant. Like, if someone's, like, I'm not really, like, a religious guy, but if I practice a religion and I literally take it as seriously as Khabib does, because Khabib is a very religious guy. And if someone is insulting you in the way that, like, your actual faith and beliefs, like, I'm not going to say that he's wrong for reacting the way he did. It's just unfortunate because it puts a huge, like, it tarnishes his legacy because he started something after his fight. Like people talk about winning and losing gracefully. Like, you can't come at McGregor because McGregor always wins and loses gracefully. I felt bad for McGregor.
Yeah.
I literally felt bad for McGregor in all this.
I could see it.
Because McGregor always wins and loses gracefully. Like, he tweeted after, he was like, he got a good knock. I'll see you for the rematch or whatever happened. Like, McGregor always loses, like, with a good sportsmanship aspect, like a good way of looking at it. And Khabib won, and it was clear when he won that it was more personal than just the fight, and it didn't mean anything. Like, the fight itself did not mean, like, him winning or losing. All he cared about was, like, sort of punishing the guy that insulted his entire family and his religion.
Yeah.
And I think, like, in a way, like, I just saw an interview from Dana White where he was asked if he feels he's responsible and partially responsible for this happening. And he said it's the stupidest question he's ever heard. But I think it's the stupidest statement to ever say, that he even thinks that he's not partially responsible. Like, Dana White, I saw this Instagram post, and it was by the Strangle Squad, and literally it says it's like a picture of Dana White posted on, like, this guy who's, like, making, like, food or something, and he's dumping racial slurs, and he's dumping like, assault charges into this pot. He's like racial slurs, family insults, religion, and, like, all this shit. And, like, what do you expect, Dana? Like, what do you expect to happen when you bring religion, assault charges, family attacks into a fight? Like, you should be controlling this. Like, at some point you have to consider yourself maybe as being a part of the problem, because you can't use things that are so charged outside. People literally die over religion. Like, people literally die. And you're surprised that somebody who had their religion and their family attacked for the promotion of this fight that reacted that way. You're surprised. That's just does not compute in my mind that he's surprised that happened. Because, like, what the fuck do you expect? Like, Khabib is, like, I consider Khabib to be a pretty respectful individual. He never does shit like this.
He always seemed pretty humble.
Like, he's such a stoic guy, and it was clear during the press conferences that it's very difficult to get under his skin. But when you call his dad a coward, you call his manager a terrorist, you call him a terrorist, like, you call him a rat terrorist and shit like that. Like, what do you expect to happen? Like, it's got to be partially on Dana White to, talk to Conor and be like, listen, man, you got to relax on the terrorist talk, because, like, that's completely outside of the realm of UFC fighting. Like, it's unfortunate because the night was so amazing. Like, every fight except for, like, 2 of them were knockouts or finishes. Every single fight was a finish except for, like, 2. And then this happens, which is, like, it's basically like a black eye in the sport. And who to blame is, I think everybody's to blame. Everybody except for the security guards, because there's nothing they could have done. Everybody's to blame. Dana White's to blame. Conor's to blame. Khabib's to blame. Conor's team, Khabib's team. Everybody's to blame except for the people who were trying to stop it, and they had nothing to do with it. Like, Dana White takes some of the blame for this, whether he likes it or not. And if Khabib gets a lengthy punishment, or listen, I'll be angry if he gets stripped strictly because Conor did not receive any punishment from the UFC or the commission for literally taking 3 fights off the card at Madison Square Gardens, where he came and threw the dolly at the bus. He put glass in Ray Borg's eye, cut Michael Chiesa's face, and like he ruined so many fights on that card, and he received no punishment from the UFC or the commission. So if Dana White hands out a punishment to Khabib, I'll just be so angry about it, but I won't be surprised. And I just feel like Dana has to be partially responsible for allowing this like, it's so, like, there should never be a fight coming on where it's racially charged. Like, why is that even a thing in the fights? Like, you wouldn't say that to somebody on the street, like, oh, you're a fucking terrorist. You know what I'm saying? Like, why would you allow that to go on in the promotion of this fight? And now, if we see a rematch, you're gonna see the bus incident and the post-fight brawl as promotion for this fight, and it just blows my fucking mind that Dana White, it's like he has no class in the promotion. It's like all he cares about is making sure that the fights get promoted. And I haven't seen the pay-per-view numbers. I feel like it was probably successful. I actually ended up paying for the pay-per-view, but it's just the fact that Dana White acts like it has nothing to do with him is just absolutely. He's a crook in the way that he's going about this, like putting all the blame on Khabib, and that's it. Like, he's to blame, Conor's to blame, Khabib's to blame. Everybody in Khabib's circle, everybody in Conor's circle is to blame. Like, I just don't understand how you can look at that any other way. Anyways, so what's next for Conor McGregor? So for Conor McGregor, he said he'll be back, which is obvious. He signed a 6-fight deal. I don't think he'll fight 6 more times, but he signed, and he's gonna fight again. Whether he gets Khabib again I don't know. Like, it's impossible to know until we see what the commission says about Khabib's suspension. But Conor, I feel like the fights that could be next for Conor, he could fight Tony. He could. That's low on the percentage in my opinion. I think Tony will get a title fight if Khabib gets it stripped, and I think that it's very possible that he will get it stripped. Dana's been he's been so quick to strip people of titles that if Khabib doesn't get stripped, I'll be extremely surprised. Conor could fight Nate Diaz. Conor could fight the winner of Nate Diaz-Poirier, or Tony could fight the winner of Nate Diaz-Poirier. There's just so many movers in this division. This division's so popping right now that, like, anything could happen. Conor's talked about fighting Tyron Woodley. I don't think that's going to happen.
That would be crazy.
Conor could fight GSP. I'm not sure if that's going to happen. I think it could happen.
That would be insane.
But I don't know. I think it might be better. I don't think that GSP should get a title opportunity, because he's not going to hold the title. So I think it would make sense if GSP fought Conor.
Why isn't he going to hold it?
Well, GSP is on the end of his career. I think that if he wins, he'll just vacate, because that's what happened at 185. Although GSP was going up and it wasn't his division, but if GSP goes down to fight at 155, that's also not his division. He'll probably vacate immediately if he fights for the title at that weight division. Yeah. So Conor could fight GSP. He said something about fighting Anderson Silva. I doubt that's going to happen. He could fight Dustin Poirier. He could fight Nate Diaz. He could fight Tony. He could fight basically anybody in the upper echelon of that division. But I think the most likely is Nate Diaz. I would say if I'm going to rank them, it's like Nate Diaz, GSP. Next it would be Tony, I guess. Next it would be Dustin Poirier. Next it would be Anderson Silva. But I think most likely he'll end up getting the trilogy fight with Nate Diaz. But my opinion on that will change after I see what's going to happen to Khabib. Because if he gets a huge suspension, then I think that the fight with Conor McGregor makes more sense. Because if he gets a huge suspension, he gets stripped, right? And then whoever is going to fight for the belt, maybe Conor wins the belt, and then Khabib will come back and probably try and fight for the belt again with Conor. Like if Conor fights Tony, like if Khabib loses the belt, he gets stripped for it because he gets a long suspension. Yeah. They'll probably have Conor and Tony, or Tony and Nate, or whoever fighting for the belt. And I just think that eventually it will turn out that Khabib fights Conor again, because there's just way too much money in selling that fight now. Yeah, because literally the entire world was watching, and the entire world has heard about what happened. Like it'll be the biggest pay-per-view of all time, no question, if they fight again. And it's a shame because it took so much violence and so much, and I'm not even talking violence. I don't care like about violence in the fight. I'm saying it took so much like unnecessary violence after, like post-fight, pre-fight, for this to sell. Like, why can't the UFC just sell fights without there being some out of the UFC powers working on it? Because like it seems like the UFC, as far as promotion goes, is kind of losing their wits about it. Yeah, they're trying to do too much WWE stuff. Yeah, it's just becoming a fucking gimmick. But yeah. So next, I'm gonna talk about the UFC main event. I talked about what the main event for UFC 230 is. And I said I didn't know who Sijara Eubanks is. I did some research like I always do. And unfortunately, Sijara Eubanks actually has lost to Aspen Ladd, who was on the undercard for UFC 229. Think about that for a second. Aspen Ladd knocked out Tanya Evinger. She TKO'd Tanya Evinger in the undercard of this event. And someone she beat at Invicta is fighting on the main card, on the main event for the next UFC pay-per-view. Like, I don't understand where they were going for. And I have a feeling that Dana White's not too thrilled about this fight either. Like, I just have a feeling that Dana White probably did everything he could to get John Jones, to get Gustafsson, maybe Colby Covington, Tyron Woodley, and just none of the cards fell in the correct way that they wanted to. That it just nothing went right for this fight to happen. And this is my timeline, how I think this is going to happen. So it was supposed to be Shevchenko-Joanna at UFC 231 in Toronto. And I believe they asked Joanna to move up and fight on the 230 card. I'm pretty sure they asked her to move up and fight with Shevchenko at 230. But she said no because she didn't want to fight on a month notice for the title, which makes sense. Like, why? Like, if you're Joanna fighting against Valentina Shevchenko, who's a bigger fighter and an absolute monster, like Valentina Shevchenko, she's one of the best female fighters in the world. Yeah. Why would you want to take that fight on a month notice? I guess that makes sense. Now, basically, Valentina's gonna get a free title for it though. But so Joanna was supposed to fight her. Her fight was canceled with Shevchenko because she didn't want to fight on a month notice, which is whatever. That's just the way it goes, I guess. I think John Jones wouldn't fight on a month notice either for his comeback because he's been out of the game for a year, 15 months now. So Gustafsson, I'm sure they asked him to fight Gustafsson. Gustafsson tweeted that he signed the dotted line, but I think John Jones didn't want to fight on a month notice, and I think he's looking at fighting at some point in January or February or something like that, which I'm absolutely pumped for. But DC couldn't fight because he has a broken hand. That's understandable. And yeah, so they just literally, and Tyron Woodley, he has to get surgery on his hand, and he holds the belt. They can't strip him of the belt. He just fought, and it just seems like nothing fell into place for the UFC for that main event to happen. I don't understand why they didn't just move Nate Diaz, Dustin Poirier to the main event, because I'd way rather see that fight for 5 rounds than see Sijara Eubanks fight Shevchenko, because I feel like Sijara Eubanks is 1-1 in the UFC. I'm pretty sure she's 3-2. She has 5 fights. And she's 1-1 in the UFC. Like, it just doesn't make any sense that she gets a title shot. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And so more on John Jones. So they asked John Jones if and DC to fight at heavyweight, and DC and John Jones both said no. So I think DC will not fight at heavyweight until Brock Lesnar, because there's so much money involved in the Brock Lesnar fight that why would he jeopardize that payday? Because he's trying to retire, and with this Brock Lesnar fight, which is deserved, by the way, he has 2 belts right now. if he fights Brock Lesnar, he's basically set for life. Like, there's so much money involved in this fight to happen. Like, I wouldn't jeopardize that either. I would not put that fight, because if he loses, then that fight with Brock Lesnar goes away, because he won't have the belt, and Brock Lesnar is coming to fight for the money and the belt, which it's whatever. But it makes sense that DC won't fight at heavyweight before Brock Lesnar. Jon Jones won't fight at heavyweight because I think it's because he feels he has something to prove at light heavyweight. This is just pure speculation. But my guess is that there is talks that maybe DC will be stripped of the light heavyweight belt to have Jon Jones and Gustafsson fight for the vacant belt for their second fight of all time, which was a war the first time. And it just makes sense from both point of views that neither of them want to fight at heavyweight. It makes sense because DC needs them. DC is waiting for his payday, and Jon Jones is waiting for his belt. And I just feel like none of the cards fell right for the 230 card. I'm not mad at Dana White. I feel like obviously he was trying to get something better, or Sean Shelby. I'm not mad, but I feel like him and Sean Shelby both know that they kind of fucked up in telling us that there was going to be a better main event and then giving us that load of crap that they gave us. But it's whatever. So yeah, that's all I got for the UFC today. Next, I'm going to get to some football. Talk about the NFL football and what just went down this week. I'm going to go over the games that happened and whatnot. And so one thing is the kicker qualms. Like, what happened this week was Mason Crosby. He missed 5 kicks against the Lions. 5 kicks. He missed 4 field goals and an extra point. One of them was a 56-yard field goal, so we can say, wow, that's not a gimme. I guess you can miss a 56-yarder. We're not going to roast you about it. But he left 10 points on the board for the Packers, and I believe the final score was an 8-point loss, if I'm not mistaken. They lost by 8, I believe.
That sucks.
Where can I find this? Yeah, so they lost 31-23. That's 8 points they lost by, and Mason Crosby left 10 points on the board, 10 gimmies. If you miss field goals that are like 45 yards or less, especially being Mason Crosby, who's been the Packers kicker for 10 plus years, and the thing is like Mason Crosby's career is still not even in jeopardy. Like, his job with the Packers, it's not going away. He's been there for too long. But the Lions won because they kept them to no points in the first half, but the Packers missed 5. They missed 5 kicks, an extra point, and 4 field goals were left on the field that day, and it's kind of amazing that the Lions can pull these wins against a much better team. The Lions have a win against Tom Brady and a win against Aaron Rodgers. Those are the 2 best quarterbacks in the league right there. And I'm not even saying that the Lions are a good team or anything, but it just seems like they're good at preying on teams' bad days. And it's like every team has a bad day against them.
Yeah, you can't rely on that.
Exactly. Like, they're not even in a playoff position. What are they, 2-3 I think right now? Like, they're not even like looking that amazing. They're below 500, but the fact that they beat Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady, that's something to mention. Now, the Patriots beat the Colts on Thursday. No surprise there. The Colts haven't beat the Patriots since 2013. Jets beat the Broncos. That's an interesting upset because the Jets, they're one of the shakier teams. They're like the Lions. Like, it's one of those teams that's just so shaky that some days it's either they play like absolute dog meat or they beat teams they had no business beating. Next we have the Panthers and the Giants. You know, it's another thing with I believe there was a missed kick by the Giants in this one too, and they lost by 2. So, and I'm pretty sure Cam Newton said after the game, your quarterback's only as good as his kicker, and it seems like that's playing out way more nowadays because like. I wonder, try and find how many kickers have come and gone this season. Hey, Noah? Look up how many kickers have been fired this season. Because in the NFL, yeah, because so many kickers are missing field goals that it's like we don't even expect them to hit field goals anymore. It's like and even extra points. Extra points aren't even a gimme anymore. I guess they moved the line back 15 yards. Who gives a fuck? Like, it's literally it's like we look at kickers as it's almost no kick is a gimme unless it's like Tucker, Gostowski, Vinatieri, and like a handful of other guys that are lights out. But it seems like there's like literally there's a classic like it's expected that there's going to be missed field goals and missed extra points every game. It's like, oh, he missed a kick, and then we're not even surprised. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like, so next we have the Steelers beat the Falcons 41-17. That's probably the biggest blowout of the day. The Browns got their win. I believe they're 2-1 now, and the Browns have I think they're 500 for the first time this season. They won 12-9. I think they've been to OT 3 times. If they would have tied that game, they would have been the only team in history to have 2 ties in one season. And they've been in OT, I think 3 straight weeks. That's got to be a huge stat. Like the last time that happened, I'm probably wouldn't be surprised if it was like the 70s. OT like three straight weeks. The Browns just they can't finish. It seems like their ability to finish is just always into question. Next, we have the Bengals Dolphins. Bengals beat the Dolphins. It's just looking good for the Pats all the way through. Like every team in the AFC is just they're losing now. Dolphins looked amazing first 3 weeks of the season, and I feel like it's going to be all downhill from here. No team in the AFC East is gonna be able to complete the season on top until Tom Brady is gone. Next, we got the Chiefs Jaguars. This guy Patrick Mahomes he's phenomenal. Like he's probably the next, like as far as young quarterbacks go, he's probably the best quarterback in the league as far as young quarterbacks go. Like obviously I'm not mentioning Andrew Luck, I'm not mentioning Aaron Rodgers, I'm not mentioning Tom Brady, but Pat Mahomes could be the greatest quarterback in the league when those guys are gone. Next we have the Chargers and Raiders. Chargers beat the Raiders 26-10. The Raiders are dog shit. That's all I have to say about that one. Like just really poor defense, really poor everything. Derek Carr really underperforming throughout the season. It's just he's throwing too many picks. He threw a red zone pick, I believe. The Vikings beat the Eagles 23-21. Just so much inconsistency on both of those teams. It's like Kirk Cousins, he's doing his thing, and Carson Wentz is doing his thing, but it's like they can't get anything going like offensively on the other side. It's like a lot of drop balls for the Eagles. And the Vikings, I'm pretty sure the Vikings missed a field goal yesterday too. It's a fucking pandemic with the missed field goals and shit. The Rams beat the Seahawks 33-31. That's a close game. I believe the Rams haven't beat the Seahawks in a few years. The Seahawks kind of had their number, but Sean McVay is here. He's here to play. Like Sean McVay is one of the best coaches in the league, and he's the youngest coach in the league. And Jared Goff, he's showing the league what it's like to be a young guy and win games because. Like he's probably up there top. He's probably top. Him and Pat Mahomes are probably the 2 best quarterbacks below like a certain age. Next, we have the Texans and the Cowboys. The Texans showed the Cowboys that they are much worse than them. As in, the Texans got, I believe, 6. They sacked the Cowboys a fuckload of times. Like the Texans' defense is phenomenal. J.J. Watt is leading the league in sacks with 6. And, the Texans just play phenomenal defense. Their offense is a little weak with Lamar Miller being injured, but the Texans' defense is just phenomenal. Next, we have the Cardinals beat the 49ers. If the Cardinals wanted to win a game, this week was the time for them to win a game because they're playing against the 49ers. C.J. Beathard, who the fuck's that guy? I've seen him play before. I think he's a veteran. I don't know how long he's been around, but he was back up to Jimmy Garoppolo. The Cardinals, if they were going to win a game, this is the week that they're going to win a game because Cardinals are dog shit, but it just turns out that C.J. Beathard's more dog shit. They won 28-18. And tonight we have the Skins and the Saints. And I can't see the Saints losing this game, to be honest with you. I think that Alex Smith is good, but I think, in my opinion, if you're gonna play bets, I think New Orleans lights up this defense. Even though I know Josh Norman's on that team, but I think he's been a little bit exposed this season as far as him getting burned a little bit. And the Saints, I think, win this game. I think that they put up a lot of points this week. Drew Brees is going to light it up. Alrighty, and that's all the topics I have for you guys today. Now we're going to get to current events. Noah, what do you got for me?
I got the Toronto Maple Leafs won overtime yesterday, 7-6 against Chicago.
We're talking a little bit of hockey for you Canadian fellas out there. Oh, and happy Thanksgiving, pilgrims, to you Canadian fellas, you fellow Canadians. And happy Thanksgiving to y'all. And we'll get to the hockey. John Tavares, he got a hat trick, I believe, right?
Yes.
I mean, not anything unexpected for John Tavares. He's always been a spectacular player. He basically put the Islanders on his back for how many years. as like they were basically nothing without him. And it's just good to see. It's in a way it's good to see the Leafs actually have like star power and good offense. But
yeah, it's finally coming together.
It's like in a way I always felt bad for Leafs fans, but in a way I don't want them to win because I don't like when Toronto fans win. You know what I'm saying? It's like listening.
Toxic,
they're so toxic to listen to when their teams are winning. Like if you ever talk to a Raptors fan, like Raptors fans are the worst to talk to when the Raptors are on top. Like. And like in a way, like I said, like I felt bad for Toronto fans because nothing would go right for them. But like at the same time, I don't want to like see the streak ended of like they haven't won since 1968. Yeah. But I feel like right now it's looking like Toronto is coming for that cup. Honestly,
yeah, definitely.
All right, what's next?
Definitely a contender this year.
Now, what do you got? Oh, how much time have we been going at this? Hey.
55 minutes.
Alrighty, let's get some. Get a couple more in here, and then we'll sign it off.
I don't know. You mentioned the Conor McGregor that he's looking forward to the rematch. I also have that.
Yeah, I already talked, but I just don't. It depends. There's just so much question marks in the UFC right now with the Khabib suspension and all that shit that like I have no idea what to think until we get a ruling from the commission.
Did you end up seeing the post-fight conference?
Yeah, I watched the whole thing. Oh, let me talk about Tony Ferguson at the post-fight press conference. That was the cringiest post-fight press conference I've ever seen.
Brutal.
It's like it's so cringy to hear him talk. He's literally talking about like how he does it for his family and shit, and it sounds like he's cutting a promo. Like it literally sounds like he's cutting a promo like all the time. Like imagine being his wife and it just sounds like he's like, "Baby, can you pass me the milk?" It just sounds like he's cutting a WWE promo when he talks all the time.
Yeah.
And he said something about like, "You don't want me to get a big head because like he'll be annoying." You're already annoying, Tony. I have the utmost respect for him as a fighter, but I just can't even believe like how annoying he is as a person. I literally hate when he takes the mic. Like the whole time I was just sitting there watching the press conference and I'm like, "Oh my, someone please stop asking him questions." Like it was just so brutal. And Dana White, he talked there. It was just he mentioned the fight of the night, the fight bonuses. They gave the fight of the night to Anthony Pettis, Tony Ferguson, obviously deserved. Yeah. Derek Lewis, I think, got a performance bonus, and I think Michelle Waterson or something like that got performance bonuses. Really? Khabib should have got a performance bonus. Like, let's be honest here. The only reason he didn't get a performance bonus is because of the whole post-fight antics, which is bullshit. Like, why would he not get a bonus? Like, that happened after the fight. You're getting bonuses for the fight.
Yeah. I think it's just what the media would have said to that.
Yeah, it doesn't. I don't know. He hasn't even been paid yet. I'm pretty sure the commission's still withholding his paycheck for that fight. If he doesn't get paid for that, I'll actually be so pissed off.
Yeah, that would be fucked up.
But who else came and sat down? Dominic Reyes came and sat down. It was whatever. Dominic Reyes, he's talking about how he's coming for the belt, whatever. And honestly, the light heavyweight division's so shallow that what does he need to be? He needs to beat like 1-2 more guys. Yeah. One more guy to be in contention. Like if he goes and beats like Glover Teixeira, then like he's in contention. Like that's all there's to say about it. That's how bad the light heavyweight division is. It's literally like if you look at the rankings, I was laughing about it. If you look at the rankings in the light heavyweight division, it's like DC, it's like God, Alexander Gustafsson, God, and then everything else. Like no one's even on the same level. It's like DC, Gustafsson, 50 feet of shit, and then the rest of the fighters. And that's not even dissing the rest of the fighters. It's just DC and Gustafsson are so good that like the rest of them look like they're terrible. And like any like the skill gap between the top three, and when John Jones gets there, it's literally it's even bigger. Like the skill gap's way bigger. It's like John Jones, tiny skill gap Daniel Cormier, and then big skill gap Alexander Gustafsson, and then fucking 50 feet of garbage, and then the rest of the fighters. Like that's how shallow that division is. Dominic Reyes could beat fucking Glover Teixeira. He could beat fucking if he fights someone like he can fight literally anybody in the division. Like, can you pull up the light heavyweight division for me? Yeah. Just tell me who's in the top 10 and just read me the names, and I'll tell you what if he beats anybody in those top 10. I'm fairly sure he'll, like, if he fights Volkan, say Volkan beats Anthony Smith. He fights Volkan, he's in contention. If he beats Anthony Smith, I'm not sure what that really does for him. Anthony Smith, I think, is unranked still. But if he beats Anthony Smith, he's probably in the top 7 if he beats Anthony Smith.
Yeah.
So who's?
Okay, here it's loading right up. All right, so DC.
Okay.
Gustafsson.
He's not getting those fights.
Volkan Odomizer.
Ozdemir, yeah.
Jan Black.
Yeah, if he beats Jan, then he's in the top 3. He's in contention. If he beats Ozdemir, he's in contention.
Latifi.
Alir Latifi beats him, he's in contention. Like, literally every single fight. Anybody that he is in the same ranking, like... So, DC and Gustafsson are not even in his wheelhouse right now. But if he beats Ozdemir, then he's in their wheelhouse. That's literally how shallow this division is. Like, there's literally no one for him to fight. But, like, anybody he does fight does, does something for his career at this point. And he could fight anybody in the division other than Gustafsson or DC.
Next is Jimmy Manuel.
Yeah, you don't have to go through it anymore. Like, the gist of it is, like, if he fights anybody outside of Gustafsson and DC, which he could fight anybody outside of Gustafsson and DC, he gets a title shot, or he gets at least a contender fight. But all right, what do you got next for me?
That was it. That's all I had for today.
Alrighty, so we just went for an hour. I think that's the longest podcast we've done so far. And we're going to end it here. I want to thank you guys for watching the podcast. As you see, I'm doing this podcast in the beautiful form of video if you're watching it on YouTube. You can see my ugly mug. And I just want to thank you guys for watching. If this all works out, I'm going to keep doing the video portion of it. I think it just looks better. I don't want to show you guys a text up on the screen all the time. But yeah, so I want to thank you guys for watching. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe on the YouTube. A comment and subscribe on the SoundCloud, and subscribe to the podcast and leave a rating on Apple Podcasts. And I want to thank you all for listening. Come back on Friday maybe, and maybe I'll post one. It'll be a fucking surprise or something. But I want to thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you maybe Friday. And I want you to have a good day, and you Canadians have a good Thanksgiving. Thank you very much.